Feminist social theory examines the differences between men and women, arguing that these differences stem from societal factors such as money, politics, and societal structures. It uses social science concepts to understand how women's lives are influenced by these factors and how society keeps them in a lower position. In the 1970s, feminist ideas were primarily based on social sciences, such as studying society and its workings. However, feminists now focus more on literature and culture, examining how women are depicted in media. Though social science ideas are less popular now, they remain crucial for feminism. Feminism and Marxism have been intertwined since the 1970s and early 1980s. Marxism, which posited that oppression was a deeply ingrained issue in society, was embraced by feminists due to its focus on explaining how rich people exploit poor people in capitalism. However, it did not align well with feminism as it focused on explaining how rich people exploit poor people in capitalism. During the 1970s and early 1980s, feminists attempt to blend Marxism with feminism, leading to debates about whether capitalism or male dominance, that is, patriarchy, was the main reason for women's unfair treatment. This led to disagreements on the origin of patriarchy, with some believing it came from capitalism, while others saw it as a separate issue. Feminist social theory remains an essential tool for understanding the complex relationship between men and women, despite the shift towards a more culturally and linguistically diverse approach. Feminists have long debated the history of patriarchy, with some believing it as a constant issue, while others believe it as important to understand how it has evolved over time. This debate led to different perspectives on women's unfair treatment, including Marxist feminists who believed it was due to specific roles in child rearing or reproduction, and radical feminists who examined how reproduction and sexuality affected women's position in society. In the 1980s, feminist ideas began moving away from material things like money and work, especially among Marxist feminists. They focused on how women's work and jobs were different from men's, such as lower pay and fewer job choices, and how capitalism and male dominance were connected. Housework, for example, was also a topic of discussion with debates about its value and whether it made any extra money for capitalism. French feminist Christine Delphi suggested that housework occurs because families are set up with men controlling women's work and women do whatever the man wants without getting anything back. This idea made some Marxist feminists angry as they did not want to believe that men could directly benefit from their wives' work. Scholars like Sylvia Walby suggested a connection between men getting paid for their work and the work their wives do at home, which they believed was how men exploited women at home. However, both Delphi and Walby argued that women's unfair treatment is not just due to housework but also how they are treated unfairly in the job market. Sylvia Walby explored this idea, arguing that patriarchy is a separate system of inequality alongside capitalism and that men control women's work. Hartman focuses more on women's paid jobs outside the home and tries to show how patriarchy and capitalism are connected. While some Marxist feminists argue that class relations are the most important factor in understanding women's situation, others, like Michelle Barrett, see patriarchy and male dominance as tangled up with modern capitalist societies. As research continued in the 1980s, more people began to recognize the importance of understanding patriarchy and how male dominance remains strong even as times change. Marxist feminists have often focused on women's subordination in terms of reproduction, which has been a topic of debate since the debate about housework. While some argue that women's roles in making babies and raising kids are essential for capitalism, others argue that this idea can be reduced to biology and ignore the complex nature of society. Reproduction was once a significant idea in Marxist feminist thinking, but it has been criticized for assuming men naturally want to pass on property. Some feminists like Rosin McDonough and Rachel Harrison argue that patriarchy comes from men controlling women's sexuality and ability to have kids, dividing women into two groups: those who had kids to pass down property and those who had kids to make future workers. This idea also reduces everything to biology and ignores how society really works. Some Marxist feminists are cautious about focusing solely on reproduction and leaving out the importance of work and class relations. For example, Shulamith Firestone, a radical feminist, believes that women's subordination comes directly from their ability to have babies, arguing that men and women are different because of biology rather than social class. Mary O'Brien offers a more detailed view of how reproduction has changed over history, arguing that both production and reproduction start from basic human needs, but the social relationships we form shape how we do things and create inequalities of class and gender. Catherine McKinnon and Monica Wittig have all contributed to feminist theories and politics, with O'Brien's work still influencing discussions on women's bodily experiences. Wittig shaping feminist queer theories, and McKinnon and Jeffries' critiques continuing to inform radical feminist theories of sexuality, particularly concerning pornography. The shift in ideology and culture towards language, discourse, and representation has been a significant development since the late 1970s. This cultural turn was influenced by Marxist feminists who sought to address issues like subjectivity and sexuality that Marxism has struggled to accommodate. Juliet Mitchell's Psychoanalysis and Feminism exemplifies this shift, emphasizing ideology and the psyche while drawing on French structuralism, Althusser's Marxism, Lacan's psychoanalysis, and Levi Strauss's work on kinship. The addition of Michel Foucault's ideas to this mix led to a view of power as diffuse and discourse driven, challenging essentialist notions of gender. This led to a deconstruction of the category of women and a recognition of its diversity and complexity. Critics from black women, third world women, and women of color highlighted the limitations of feminist analysis framed predominantly from a white Western perspective. Postmodern theorizing has criticized for neglecting analysis of the material conditions of women's lives, denying overarching systems of power, and shifting focus solely to culture and the discursive construction of difference. Feminist post-colonial theorists like Gayatri Spivak engaged with postmodernist theory while maintaining a focus on material inequalities. Sylvia Walby challenges the claim of postmodernists to monopolize theorizing diversity and complexity, arguing that it goes too far in fragmenting categories like women, race, and class. Walby insists on retaining structural concepts like patriarchy, capitalism, and racism, recognizing their intersections and roles in the international division of labor. Walby advocates for the development of theories that recognize the intersections of gender, class, and ethnicity within broader structural frameworks while acknowledging historical and cross cultural variations. Materialist feminist analysis faced a decline in popularity in the 1990s, with some dismissing them as irrelevant today. However, some feminists have always been critical of attempts to create totalizing theories of women's oppression and have been cautious of universalistic explanations. Postmodernism has seen a retreat from extreme anti materialist implications, with some feminists reasserting the importance of structural inequalities. The term materialist feminism has been